Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Madeline with Sundance Astrology, here to talk to you today about the upcoming full moon in Sagittarius. If you are new around here, welcome. I am a Hellenistic astrologer. I use whole sign houses in my practice, and I use traditional rulerships. If you've been with me through my short time here on YouTube, thank you and welcome back. So yes, we are here today to talk about the full moon in Sagittarius, which is coming in on Tuesday, June 14th at 5:52 in the morning, Mountain Standard Time based off of my location. Please do adjust that time based off of your own location, as the time will change if you are in a different time zone. As always, I like to start off these videos with just a brief recap of the energies that we have been moving through since my last video, which was on May 31st for the Gemini new moon. So since then, we've had a couple things happen. Mercury has officially stationed direct. That occurred on June 3rd. We also had Saturn move retrograde on June 4th. Now, with the Mercury retrograde energies moving direct, although it is direct, we are still moving through Mercury's shadow phase, which essentially just means we are moving through the same degrees that we went backwards through during the retrograde. So we are still revisiting the same themes. Perhaps we are starting to move things forward a little bit in order to tie up any loose ends there with whatever your Mercury retrograde themes are. But yes, we are still moving through that. Really, it feels like we are still just kind of playing catch up with everything that occurred during eclipse season. And with the sun in Gemini, we will have Mercury in Gemini by the time the full moon occurs. So with this Gemini energy, Gemini is a sign that is quite curious, it is inventive, and it enjoys a puzzle to solve. And it enjoys finding multiple ways to solve that puzzle. So during the eclipse season, you may potentially felt like you had a little bit of tunnel vision, overwhelmed on how to get from point A to point B. With this Mercury or with this Gemini energy coming in, we're really starting to kind of expand our vision a little bit, because Gemini is interested in all the different paths it takes us to get to point A to point B. So it's allowing us to kind of turn the kaleidoscope of our vision a little bit, or turn the jewel of what we are moving towards in order to see things in a different light than perhaps what was coming up for us during the fixed season eclipses. So we have Venus in her home sign of Taurus. We have Mars in his home sign of Aries. And as I mentioned, by the time the full moon comes in, Mercury will re-enter its home sign of Gemini. So overall, we are kind of just picking up the pieces and trying to put things back together after eclipse season. Otherwise, the planetary transits have been fairly quiet. On June 11th, we have Venus conjoining Uranus, which may kind of help provide a little more clarity on these things that we are playing catch up in. So Venus conjunct Uranus is like quick, sudden insights, aha moments. You're opening up to new ideas, which, may have taken a little bit longer than we expected after eclipse season. So otherwise, the planetary energy has been, or the transits, aka the way the planets communicate with each other, has been fairly quiet, which this can be felt in a couple different ways. Sometimes when the planetary energy is quiet, it can feel quite calm. There's not too much interference or too many different energies communicating with each other and providing their testimonies to each other. So for some of you, you may have experienced this as a calmer 2-week period. Sometimes the calmer and quieter energy can really emphasize, especially right now, the void or transitional state that we are currently in. So just know that the Venus or the Gemini and the Sagittarius axis, which we are dealing with on this full moon, is an information axis. Gemini is interested in thoughts, intellect, communication, exchange of information, whereas Sagittarius is the truth-seeking sign. It is interested in finding answers, whether that's a long journey or not. It will pull its bow and arrow and shoot that and start moving towards it. So we are working through these signs that bring a little bit lighter energy. They are mutable or double-bodied signs, meaning they are comfortable with being flexible, which is welcome after the eclipses in fixed signs, which eventually started to feel a little bit dense, in my opinion. So we have this Gemini energy, and although it may be taking a little bit more time to kind of figure out the puzzle, this full moon in Sagittarius is hopefully going to shine a light on whatever it is, the information, the next steps that we need to shoot our own bow and arrows at in order to continue to move forward after eclipse season. So something to keep in mind, eclipses, as I've mentioned, are catalysts for change that then unfolds for 6 months. So this is kind of like phase one of whatever happened in eclipses starting to unfold for you. And with the Sagittarius full moon, it is essentially presenting something for us to then again shoot our bow and arrow and work towards finding those next steps. So let's take a look at the chart and we can break this down a little bit further.
So here we have our Sagittarius full moon chart. A couple of themes we are talking about in general, as we have the sun in Gemini and the moon in Sagittarius. The sun in Gemini has the energy and potential to provide, as I mentioned, many different solutions, but this energy can also feel quite scattered at times, almost like an overflow of information. Gemini energy deals with intellectualism. So we're talking totally about the mind and specifically the exchange of information. While Sagittarius deals more with themes around expansion of the mind. So it's more philosophical. We're talking about things like mythology. It seeks information, whereas Gemini is dealing with exchanging information. So Sagittarius is, with this full moon in Sagittarius, we're kind of being asked to get back on your horse if you have fell off and get going. So this is moving energy. And this also, when we're talking about Sagittarius, we can also talk about themes around wasted potential, because this is the sign of the centaur, where it will consistently shoot its bow and arrow and run after it. And once it finds it, it just continues to do it again. So like a standard stereotype Sagittarius is someone with like a PhD, sitting on their wall, framed up on their wall, and they're not using it. So we have themes around information, but also your own potential. So the sun in Gemini has probably provided many different possible situations or solutions for you the past 2 weeks since that new moon. And this Sagittarius full moon, now as we hit the full moon cycle, this is a culmination of that energy. So we are now being asked to really set our sights on something and go. So it's like pick something out of all the scenarios that Gemini has maybe brought up for you recently. The Sagittarius energy is asking you to really hone in, set your sights on something, and go after it. So this is kind of like go time energy. And this Sagittarius energy can also provide an optimism and enthusiasm, which again is nice as we are kind of just coming out of the trenches of the eclipse season in Taurus and Scorpio. So that's kind of nice just to have that optimistic energy potentially coming in here for this full moon. Something to mention, we do have a square to Neptune. So sun at 23, moon at 23, we have Neptune at 25. So there is a square from Neptune to both the sun and the moon. So Neptune, the planet of really it's boundless energy. There's no boundaries for Neptune. It's foggy. It's kind of mystifying. So things may still be unclear. This can definitely indicate that maybe we're taking a shot in the dark here, based off of a whim or gut instinct, which Sagittarius can bring, but also its ruler, Jupiter and Aries, can bring that as well. So something to consider here with this square to Neptune. Neptune, we're talking about spirituality, and with the sun and the moon and Gemini Sagittarius axis, as I mentioned earlier, this is kind of an information axis. So we're dealing with the mind in many different ways. So something to ask yourself or consider, is your mind getting in the way? This can be kind of a tension between the mind, your intellect, and your intuition. So that may present a little bit of tension for this full moon. However, I do think the Sagittarius energy, we are kind of ready to just take that shot in the dark and again, stop getting potentially stuck in the mind and really start to get things moving here. And we also have Saturn aspecting this full moon. So in a pretty positive way, Sun and Moon at 23, Saturn, just like Neptune, is at 25. However, Saturn is seeing the Sun by a trine, and it is seeing or communicating with the Moon by a sextile. These are the two aspects that are known as more positive or harmonious. Saturn is talking about responsibilities, structures, and maturing. So as we act on setting our sights on something with the Sagittarius full moon and embracing our potential here, we are talking about maybe we're taking action to set up some structures that help us achieve what it is that we are moving towards. So Saturn is retrograde, so his pressure isn't as hard as it usually is when he is going direct. So perhaps you are revisiting some structures that you have in your life and changing them a little bit, restructuring some things to better aid you on your journey to the arrow that you are shooting for this full moon. So we do have the ruler of this full moon is Jupiter, as Jupiter rules Sagittarius. So we can take a look at Jupiter in Aries, which is at 5 degrees of Aries. So again, this can emphasize that feeling. So as we hit the culmination of this full moon, the energy is peaking. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of us are kind of taking actions or at the very least starting to trust our intuition again, or any gut feelings that we are having at this time. So this indicates that we are expanding the scope of ourselves, because Aries is the sign of the self. So there's a focus here on the self, and Jupiter is this planet of growth, expansion, opportunities. It is absolutely a teacher planet. It loves for us to learn. So we are expanding the scope of ourself for this full moon. So this can bring in also courage for us to act on something. So Aries is, known as a very courageous and brave sign that has enough passion to just simply bolt after what it desires. So this can also bring in a little bit of courage if you've been feeling down since the eclipses. This definitely indicates that we are ready to take something on. So we are talking really about the potential of the self and themes around the mind or intellect perhaps getting in the way. This is certainly emphasized here, as we also have a square from Black Moon Lilith, which she can indicate fear or potential rage, especially if we're talking about Aries to Black Moon Lilith in Cancer. So there are things within the mind that may be getting in the way right now. So if you're, especially fear, like if what is stopping you from moving forward on anything that has been revealed to you since, honestly, eclipse season, the Black Moon Lilith here is presenting a little bit of fear. So know that if you are working with fear, again, this Aries energy might kind of push through that and just with the gut instinct ask you to kind of just move forward there. So what's interesting here, though, is that in the next lunation, just as a quick preview, our new moon in Cancer at the end of June, Jupiter in Aries and Black Moon Lilith are both prominent players in that new moon. So we'll have the sun in Cancer, the moon in Cancer conjunct Lilith for the Cancer new moon, and it will be squaring Aries exactly. So something within the mind that we might be afraid of right now, or things that we may be acting on right now, I think these are really, this might be heightened energy as we're talking about the full moon, peak light, culmination. And then, so we may still be dealing with some tension here. And then in 2 weeks, when the Cancer new moon rolls around, that can fully indicate like the new beginning around whatever it is that you were afraid of, what you acted on potentially here. So keep in mind, these are key players in the next lunation, which is quite interesting because they are interacting with each other here. So yeah, so we're talking about themes around the mind, intellect, perhaps getting in the way. Although the Aries energy and the Sagittarius energy certainly knows what it wants. So as Jupiter rules this full moon, Jupiter calls for faith. This is not only the planet of expansion, but also faith, hope, and optimism. So my mantra for this full moon that I will offer is, I trust in my fullest potential. So with the Sagittarius energy, now is not the time to waste your potential. Now is the time to really embrace it and trust what it is that your gut or your intuition is feeling, even though the mind may be, arguing a little bit. So again, our mantra, our affirmation, I trust in my fullest potential. So happy full moon, everyone. I hope it is providing you with some optimism, kind of pulling you out of the depths potentially of eclipse season, which I think we are certainly still kind of getting out of. So I'm wishing you the best full moon blessings. If you liked this video, please do give it a like and a share if you think somebody you know would benefit from this information. If you'd like to book a reading with me, you can get in touch with me via my website, www.sundanceastrology.com. You can also follow me on Instagram, where I offer more regular updates than I do here. Basically, I offer updates between the full and the new moons on my Instagram at Sundance Astrology. I also have a TikTok, Sundance Astrology. So thank you everyone so much for being here. I'm wishing you the best full moon. If you are feeling this already or seeing the themes pop up for you, please let me know in the comments how this is interacting with you, maybe your chart specifically, just any energies that you are feeling in general. All right, everyone, happy full moon in Sagittarius, and I will see you in the next one.